Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Game of Thrones episode 8 video. Just careful for spoilers if you haven't seen it. They had so much fun burning theories to the ground in this episode. It was crazy. The biggest theories that the episode shut down were one, Clegane Bowl. The second big one was that there was going to be a twist behind Arya's storyline, like Braavosi Fight Club, Syrio Forel, just some big twist with Arya's storyline. So I'll try to explain, what was going on with that. But then also the theory that the actor playing Lem Lemoncloak was teasing Lady Stoneheart in last week's episode. So I was definitely bummed out by Clegane Bowl, but I did kind of expect the Lady Stoneheart thing to not pan out. I did think the actors were just having a little bit of fun with us, because they seriously do get in a lot of trouble when they spoil things. HBO is super litigious, and even if Ian McShane did spoil a bunch of stuff, they probably still withheld a bunch of money from him. Usually actors get paid extra money for keeping secrets, so if they break that part of the contract, they just don't get that extra money on top of whatever they get paid, like they get a bonus. So here we go, top 10 WTF, I'll explain book changes as we go along. Number 10. Fake Cersei does a much realer version of the Purple Wedding. She listened to Arya's advice, so her performance also tells you a lot about what's going on during Jaime's storyline, where he's talking about the fierceness that Cersei and Catelyn Stark had for their children. So that makes you wonder what's going to happen now with Tommen and Cersei in King's Landing, given that she'd do anything to protect him, but now they're at odds. So number 9, Tommen bans trial by combat. So this was like Cersei's slam dunk win. Now she's going to have to scramble with Qyburn, and the new play sounds like it's going to have something to do with Qyburn's little birds. He says he has a secret, something that he was investigating. We don't actually know what it is, but it's going to be some secret that will help her defeat the High Sparrow. But big WTF, what could it possibly be? I feel like her best option would be to burn down the Great Sept with everyone in it using wildfire. Maybe that's what Qyburn was researching, like finding some wildfire that had been left in the city somewhere. Because the Mad King, when he gave the order to burn down King's Landing, to burn them all, he'd already hidden stockpiles of wildfire all over the city. So maybe the little birds found some wildfire. So there's just a big question mark with Cersei's storyline. You guys can let me know, what do you think the Qyburn's secret is? But Tommen banning trial by combat was definitely the biggest blow to Clegane Bowl. Number 8 WTF. Fake Cersei kind of adopts Arya. You should come with us. We're going to Pentos, which is actually where Illyrio lives, who we haven't seen in a while. He's a much bigger part of the plot in the books, and he is part of the Targaryen restoration that Varys is part of. So it was kind of a dead end, and you're really just waiting for the Terminator to show up on their doorstep and go at it with Arya again. So this was really only nice just to see someone treat Arya like a mother would. Like, how long has it been since Arya's felt a mother's love? So this is the closest she's gotten in a long, long time. That death reveal, though, that was pretty epic. It's almost like she was folded around the chair. Just like, oh god. Number 7, one of my other favorite kills in the episode. The Mountain versus the Faith Militant. Basically ripping one of their skulls out with the spine still attached. That was such a great practical effect. There was probably a little bit of CG, but it was mostly practical, like an actual physical skull. Bonus points to any of you on Halloween if you can actually rig a practical effect so when trick-or-treaters come to your house looking for candy, you rip like a fake skull out of some body. You would probably get arrested for child endangerment, and someone would probably die from fright. But number 6, another big gunslinger standoff, Jaime and Brienne. So the whole purpose of this scene is really to question Jaime's honor. Where do his loyalties lie? Is he going to do the right thing? And what even is the right thing? But the way they use music in this and the exchange that they had just lets you know that there's still something between them, and Jaime still has good inside him. He still has some sense of honor, but he believes that he loves Cersei. His loyalty is to his family. So while he's not throwing Brienne under the bus, he's not just going to lay down his arms and quit his family and go join her up in the north. So of all the storylines, this is actually the most remarkably believable. Brienne narrowly escapes, the Blackfish fights to his death. This is the only way I know. This is my home. I'm going to fight to the end. So it's very melancholy, but that last little wave was just so beautiful. Just like, hey, maybe we'll see each other again someday. Dan and Dave actually, after the episode, were kind of ambiguous about whether or not they would meet up again. I don't think they would have said that, though, if that weren't going to be the case. So if you're still shipping these two characters, there's still potential for that in future seasons. I think the show is trying to do everything it can to keep the main actors on the show as long as possible. So that's why even if Cersei takes it in the butt at this trial, I think that she'll still be around next season. Number 5 though, big book moment. This made me so happy. Jaime threatens to catapult Edmure's baby with Rosalind Frey over the battlements at River Run if he doesn't cede the castle. This was one of those tongue-in-cheek moments that's pulled straight out of Jaime's storyline in Book 4, where he tells Edmure, "I'll let you enter the castle if you turn it around and surrender to us. If not, I will return your new baby to you by catapult." So while that's a really big book moment, number 4, big book change, is the Brotherhood Without Banner storyline in The Hound. The Hound just goes total Terminator on half of that band that killed his peace cult, then goes after Lem Lemoncloak, and we see Thoros of Myr and Beric Dondarrion again. So at this point in the books, Beric Dondarrion has given the kiss of life to Lady Stoneheart. She's taken over, and her signature move is hanging everyone. So all the hanging here is really just a wink to that, which I think most of us all kind of agreed was the way they were going to take it. If they were going to do Lady Stoneheart, they would have probably done her during season 4. But I just did a big video explaining her book storyline, so I'll put a link in the description. It's actually pretty spectacular, but a lot of it would have spoiled what was going to happen with Jon Snow's storyline, so there's just a number of reasons why they probably chose not to do it on the TV show. But the other big strike to Clegane Bowl comes when Beric Dondarrion and Thoros say, "We have something that we're going to be doing in the north, a much greater cause, something way more terrible than what's happening here is going on. We need your help." It's like they're offering the Hound a way to atone for the terrible things that he's done. Be a fighter because that's what he is, but be a fighter for a cause that's righteous. So it seems like the Hound is headed north, and now, number 3, Arya is headed north, because she kills the Waif, Braavosi Fight Club goes down the toilet. I am really glad I didn't waste time making a video about that. We all felt like she was coming back to Westeros eventually. It was just a question of how that was going to happen and what was going to cause her to do that. Was she going to do it as a faceless person, or as the show told us, she's basically just quitting the organization. "I'm not no one. I'm Arya Stark of Winterfell, and I'm going home." So if you're not sure why everyone was so confused about what was going on with Arya's storyline last week, it's just that Arya wasn't acting the way Arya normally acts, which now we know was the show just being inconsistent in the way that that character was portrayed. There wasn't any secret behind it. It was just them getting lazy. But we actually learned why she didn't have Needle with her, because she had hid it way down here. So that explains that. But I mean, there are a number of inconsistencies in the scenes from last week, so try not to overthink it too much. It was just her versus the Waif, but I did like the way they cut that final scene where she just chops the candle in half, cut to the blood pool as Jaqen's following it down to the face. So I totally understand if you're not happy with the way that went down, because sometimes even with TV shows that are this big, there's so many moving parts that sometimes what ends up on screen can feel a little misleading, even if it's not intentionally meant to be so. But that music that they shut the episode down with, like the drums, probably my new favorite Game of Thrones soundtrack. I'm gonna actually have to rip that out of the end of the episode. But number 2, really badass reveal, Daenerys rolls back into the pyramid as we see Drogon flying around in the background. In number 1 WTF, the second siege of Meereen. So the first siege was when Daenerys was sacking it the first time. The second big one is implied to be a Winds of Winter thing, the Great Masters of Slaver's Bay coming to reclaim their property. So I was totally not expecting the Daenerys reveal. What I was expecting is that because this scene with them drinking wine, telling jokes was so mundane, I was expecting the pyramid to start shaking and the dragons to get out, Viserion and Rhaegal, and then for them to just go crazy on all of the Great Master's ships, which I think will happen. The dragons will get out, they'll handle some of the ships. But what about Theon and Yara? Don't you think that they'd be able to capture some of those ships, and that would help get them much closer to the 1,000 number that Daenerys needs to get everyone over to Westeros? Like, it's like, oh, we need all these ships, but then surprise, surprise, a bunch of them just come sailing up. So why don't we take them? So here's my big question for you guys with respect to this storyline. How long do you think it's going to be before the other 2 dragons get out and start going crazy on all the ships in the bay with Drogon? It feels like one of those things that they would tease in like the 2nd or 3rd act. Like, things go crazy, Daenerys sees Drogon going nuts, and she's like, okay, why don't we let the other 2 dragons out? And then you finally get this big reveal of them going crazy. But as much of a bummer as it is to see like Clegane Bowl isn't going to be happening, pretty much all the other theories that they dumped water on, I didn't really think that we would see Lady Stoneheart, and I felt like the Arya explanation was going to be something a little more straightforward. You have to remember that fan theories tend to be way more complicated, way more interesting than what actually ends up happening on screen. And that's true of any TV show. That's just part of the fun of making fan theories. It's just you have some really fantastical idea for how the plot might work out or their character relationships. And TV shows tend to opt for the simplest, most easy explanations you could possibly imagine. So sometimes that ends up being kind of disappointing. But let me know in the comments, were you really hoping that we would see some of these big theories pan out, or did you not buy into any of them at any point? And what's going to happen next is I'll do a Q&A video. There is a new round of the giveaway that's going on right now. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. If there are any bonus videos later this week you guys want, any Snowball, Jon Snow versus Ramsay stuff, just let me know in the comments, because that is what is happening. They tease that giant battle, but we also have the second Siege of Meereen, this other big battle in Meereen. So there's at least 2 giant pitched battles, and then we have Cersei's trial with the Faith, which is a battle of a very different kind. Still so much hype making to be done. But while you guys wait for my next video to post, you can click here to learn all about Lady Stoneheart in the books. I explain what her book story is. And you can click here to learn all about Euron Greyjoy's storyline. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.